Tallahassee, the Commissioner. Thank you. Please welcome.
Okay, it's working. Good. You never get a mic check when you do these. You just get to walk up and start talking. How's everybody today? Okay, I gotta do like my mayor. How's everybody today? A little better. A little energy level higher would be great. How's lunch? Okay? Okay. The data pretty good? These are always great opportunities. The energy level that you're feeling now, the excitement, don't let that go. Carry it with you every day. Just about everybody I talked to following these leaves with such a level of excitement and enthusiasm. And as I said, the key is to maintain that and keep this going. There's so many opportunities for us here. We have a city with so many great opportunities, and yet we still have a lot of people that we need to lift up higher and do more things for. So, having said that, let me just give you just a brief background on how I got engaged in this community school effort. A very good friend of mine, Vicki Weber, who at the time was president of the Children's Home Society, reached out to me, this is probably 3 years ago, and she said, you need to know about this concept called the community school. And she told me a little bit about it. She told me about Evans High School, which is in Orlando. And I grew up in Orlando, so I remember the old Evans High School. That's where they built the new facility. And Pine Hills is a very rough area in Orlando. At least when I grew up, it wasn't the area that she was spent a lot of time in. And the years have been hard on Evans High School, and something had to happen. So a group of people came together and they formed this partnership, agreement between several different partners, which we're going to talk about, and they formed this community school. So several of us went down, and we went down over the summer, and so we didn't actually see it when it was fully engaged, because most of the students were off to summer school. But to hear the successes, and to hear the services provided, and to hear teachers say things like, the reason I love it here is because I get to teach. Because I don't have to worry about whether the child's been fed or not, because we have food here. And I don't have to worry as much about what kind of trauma the child might have in their lives, because we have mental health support here. And they went down to dental care, health care. The teachers got to teach, and the students excelled. And we're very fortunate that Jarvis here was principal then, and he is now, and he's going to be able to tell you more about the success that had been. So when I came back, I was totally enthused, and was able to gather a group together, and we're still moving the ball, but the ball is gaining momentum, and I think hopefully in the very near future we'll have that community school here in Tallahassee. So, having said that, so all of you have been introduced. Courtney's easy to spot because she's the only one with Courtney. I'm going to let you each now introduce yourself a little bit, and what your connection is to this, and how you see things getting moving forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Courtney Atkins, Executive Director of Whole Child Leon. And I'll give you just a brief background about Whole Child. We're not a direct service provider. Our mission is around young children, ensuring that we engage the entire community so that young children enter school ready to learn and are successful. And we talk about 4 big goals of Whole Child Leon. The first one is community ownership and participation in early childhood success. We want all children to be healthy at age 1, to make appropriate progress, and to enter school ready to learn. We work closely with partners and parents together to look at the needs of families, identify where there are gaps, and figure out how can we address those gaps, usually very creatively with limited resources. Part of that work is working on initiatives to create, address these needs. And one thing we've been doing since about 2014 is working in the South City neighborhood. We looked at the high infant mortality, low birth weight, repeat teen pregnancy, the health disparities there, the lack of infrastructure in the built environment, and started projects and activities trying to engage the community around improving conditions for the families there. And I think because we work closely with partners and provider partners to address some of these needs, we were probably a good fit. And that's why Gill reached out to us to be part of that first planning committee for the community school.
is Kimball Thomas. My involvement has been with the city now for 9 months and working with this initiative. It may have something to do with, I was former principals in local schools, namely Rickers High School. We got the International Baccalaureate program there. Yay! And was part of that from the ground up and saw a transformation of the school when it invested into students and be student-centered and what could happen. And I would tell you from that experience of being a high school principal, you wonder when you look at students' test data and things of that sort, why aren't they doing well in school today? Why are they when students, it's kind of difficult to want to be focused on the Pythagorean theorem. I'm sure most of you remember the Pythagorean theorem. When you're hungry, when you've got some emotional stress issues, when you've got food insecurity issues. And so this project through networking and relationships brought to me where I am today, that we can look at an initiative and help students, as Dr. Charles has said earlier, those stability and things of Maslow's hierarchy of needs was very difficult to get to self-actualization if you're worried about having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that day. So we really excited about being here, and thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jarvis Wheeler. It is great to be back in Tallahassee. I'm a proud alumni of Florida State University. So my role being a part of the community partnerships at Evans High School, I've served in the capacity of the director there for the past 4 years. But I've really been able to see the change over a period of time. I was a former student at Evans High School prior to us having a community partnership school model. I then, after graduating from Florida State, undergrad and grad school, went back to Evans High School and served as a tutor, a teacher, and in the capacity of the director. So I've had the opportunity to kind of see Evans High School prior to us having the services in our model on campus, and then post what we experience now. When you talk about culture change, culture enhancement, when you talk about just eradicating so many barriers that our students face on a daily basis, we almost model it just like a college or a university. When you think about the community partnership school model, it's based to raise the ground floor for our students. So many people think about raising the ceiling, but what about those students who don't have those basic needs? And when you raise that ground floor, the things that you can do are wonderful. If you think about a university, imagine having a health center on site. It usually happens. Imagine having a place for counseling on site for a university. That usually happens. And I would like to believe that it's probably because they don't have their parents or that social support that they grew up with. So when they're learning how to be adults, they need those services infused into their daily living. And colleges and universities do a great job at providing that. And essentially, that's exactly what we're trying to do on the high school level for some of our most at-risk, high-need schools. So it's a pleasure to be here and look forward to this dialogue.
My name is Rocky Hanna. I'm the newly elected superintendent of schools here in Leon County. It's an honor to be a part of this conversation. I'm a product of our public schools. My family's been in this community for nearly 100 years. I love Tallahassee, love Leon County. But I have to say, this would not happen had it not been for the leadership of our mayor, Mayor Gill. I attended the first summit 2 years ago. This is, I guess, number 3 this year, and I was just blown away. I'd also like to recognize some of our school board members are here. I see Ms. Strickland, Alva Strickland in the back, board chair Billy Bowen, and newly elected board member Roseanne Wood. So thank you all for being here with us. 3 years ago, when I was sitting out in the audience, and my whole career, for the last 29 years, has been with secondary kids, whether I was a teacher or a coach or a dean or assistant principal or principal, and either at the divisional level, was with teenagers. But sitting here 3 years ago, kind of a light bulb went off when I started hearing all the conversations about early childhood and early childhood education. Because now we have kids that come into kindergarten. Some are prepared, but many are not. And that's where the gap starts. It starts at age 5 or 6. We talk about 95% of a child's brain is developed by the age of 5. What can we do to get on the front end? Because right now, what we're doing isn't working. We take a kid in kindergarten, we talk about the achievement gap, and we spend the next 12 years trying to close that gap, and frankly, we don't do a very good job. So how can we get on the front end? How can we as a school system support what's going on in our pre-K, in our VPK, and in other private companies in our community, because it's going to save us money on the backside. So that immediately shot to one of the top issues on my platform when I ran to become superintendent. Money was first, but what can we do to push those dollars and those resources down, especially with our VPK and a K2 initiative, to get on the front side of the achievement gap. I sent a team during my campaign out of my pocket down to visit Evans High School in Orlando to learn more about the community school there. I've been in conversations with Malcolm Thomas, the superintendent over in Escambia County. They have Weiss Elementary School over in Escambia County, which is the second community school in the state of Florida. And I'm excited to have recent conversations with Commissioner Ziffer about what do we do moving forward. There's been a lot of talk. Talk is nice, talk is good, but it's time for action. It's time for us to come together, to put politics aside. It doesn't matter who gets the credit. What matters is what's best for our kids. So how can we come together as a school system and a city government and a county government to provide a comprehensive plan and program for the benefit of our youngest of children? So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Pretty strong group of people here. I'm going to open this up to all. My guess is quite a few of these questions Jarvis will have to jump in. Some of them have to do with actual operations of the community school. And while a lot of us have knowledge, Jarvis is the one that's on the front line. But talk a little bit, any one of you can jump in here, about the concept, we use the term community school model that's used around the state, about the four partners and the commitment that the four partners have to make to the school in order to get the buy-in from the community. I'm not sure who wants to jump in and do that.
So when you talk about commitment, that's essentially what it is. When you think about high-need communities, so often you have people who have grant funding who want to come in and do things to people, or claim that it's for people. So when you have, especially large entities coming together, you want to showcase that commitment. At Evans High School, we signed an MOU agreeing to 25 years of commitment to be there for the long run. We believe that's really how you change culture. That's really how you change the environment. And then, think about a popular relationship that exists in Western culture called marriage. When you talk about bringing just two people together, and you talk about dealing with two personalities and making them become one. I'm not married, but I heard all the stories. So, with our model, we have 4 core partners. We have the school district, we have a lead nonprofit, we have a university, and then we have a health and wellness focus, so usually a federally qualified health center. So imagine 2 organizations coming together and agreeing to things. Now you double that, and you have 4 organizations coming together and doing things. And if you have 4 people coming together and doing things, you're going to do things different. So it's important to have that commitment up front. It's important to have that agreed upon mission, and that agreed upon goal and long-term outlook, and work our way towards that.
I want to reinforce that. The key to all of these that are being done around the state is the long-term commitment. The problem is if you say we're going to do this, but there's not that long-term, then it's difficult to get the buy-in from the community and the folks that are going to be served by it. And if you have a memo of understanding that says we're all engaged for the long term for 25 years, you start to get that buy-in. So having said that, and Kimball, I know you know something about this. Let's talk a little bit more about what the community school, not only for the students, but what that does to the community wraparound services that are offered for other folks.
Looking at the research, but seeing empirical data when you go visit our friend in Orlando, what you see is that there's parent and community engagement. And you see ownership of their territory, of their school, of their children. And parents are at the decision-making level There's several aspects of running a community school, but parents are right there with respect to some of the daily activity things that take place. And parents begin to be transformed into using the medical services after school hours or before school hours. Parents are engaged in some of the leadership decisions of the school, and they take ownership. And what a novel idea to have parent engagement, taking ownership with their children, walking lockstep with respect to building a community school aspect and having a lot of pride in that. It's very impressive when you see it up front.
Superintendent, those of you want that microphone, please.
I'm in the process of doing my spring tour. Kind of got things organized at the district office, and now I'm going to all of our schools. I went to 3 schools yesterday, leaving here and going to 2 more this afternoon. We need help. We need help. We have kids that are up against some overwhelming obstacles, and we have serious concerns with mental health issues. I know Board Member Bowen has been hammering about getting more mental health counselors and social workers into our schools. But we need partners. We have limited resources as a public school system. We spend so much daggum time drilling kids for the FSA testing, which is going on right now as we speak, that we kind of lose sight of the whole child. And we have so many resources in our community. I mean, Florida State University, Flagler, FAMU. We would be fools not to tap into some of those resources and to bring the services to our children and to those families that desperately need it. Some of our kids, they come from conditions that you can't even imagine. You just can't. And Sylvia, I don't want to put you on, I'm not singling you out, I don't want to put you on the spot. But on Friday mornings, I serve breakfast at the Hope community, and I was formerly on the board at the Hope Center. And they have a number of kids that are in that facility. Sylvia and her staff do an amazing job. A couple of Fridays ago, we were serving breakfast and had some IB students that were there volunteering serving us. And I heard some commotion going on in the cafeteria area, so I came out, finished cracking all my eggs. I'm the official egg cracker. I haven't been upgraded to the grill yet, but I'm working on getting promoted. But I go out and there's some commotion going on, and there were a whole, like 40 kids, maybe 50 kids, and a number of adults, and there was anywhere from this age changing diapers to elementary, middle, and high school kids. And these 2 ladies were kind of having words with each other. And it slowly started to grow, and it slowly started to escalate, and then the profanity started, and then it became almost physical. And I'm trying to intervene and get in front of this woman who's screaming and cursing at the top of her lungs, and the other one's throwing stuff at her, and I'm begging her. I'm like, ma'am, please, there are children here. I am begging you, please do not do this. And finally it stopped. And those kids, I was shaking. I mean, it was a traumatic for me, the adult trying to know, much less the 7-year-old that just had to witness that to get on the bus to go to school. And I'm not singling out that. I mean, that's a tough environment. Those people, they're hopeless and helpless. And Sylvia and her staff do an amazing job to get them back on their feet, to get them housing again. But those are just some of the examples that our kids are coming to school with that baggage and with that trauma. We need help. As a superintendent, I can't thank you enough, Commissioner. I mean, this is not conversations, but at some point it's enough talk and it's time to come together and actually to do something.
I'm just going to expand a little bit on the trauma part of it. Young child school and acting up a lot more than the other children. And when I was in school, 150 years ago, what usually happened next was you got sent to the principal's office. And the fact is that's the worst thing that can happen. What needs to happen is a conversation between the teacher and the student, no matter what age, what happened at home. Did something happen? So can we talk, and I think it's Superintendent, you may want to pick up the microphone again, but I think Hartsfield, for example, and other schools, aren't some of the teachers getting trauma training so that, or Courtney has some knowledge in that. And I know that some of our teachers are getting trauma training. And I think more need to do that, and that's one of the things that all the teachers at community schools are training, because a big part part of this is recognizing behavior problems that are as a result of something that happened at home or something they saw on the way to school.
Well, I'll just start by saying that, yeah, these adverse childhood experiences that you're talking about, we know from everything we learned this morning that these kids that have experienced these traumas, their brains develop in a different way. And so it's really important that everyone, in a perfect world, everyone from the bus driver to the administrators and the principal of the school would be trained in trauma-informed care. And Rocky, I think there are some initiatives happening at Hartsfield.
Yeah, Hartsfield is kind of a pilot, and I want to expand what's going on there. And we had a long school board meeting last night, but one of the results was we ended up removing our PACE school with kids that are diagnosed with emotional behavior disorders to a new facility, because we have a lot of kids that need special services like that. So I'm very, very excited about their new home that those kids are going to have, because we have a number of students in our community that, because of this, have now been diagnosed or developed emotional behavior disorders. Well, once they've seen these adult models in these types of environments and have adopted those same types of behaviors, so there are some issues that we have to work through, and it's our obligation as a public school system and as a community to help those children. Because if we don't, you know the end result. But it's learning more. How can we learn more? I used to load my teachers up at Leon at the beginning of every year on school buses. And we would go drive our zone, drive the Leon High School school zone, because I wanted them to realize and understand. Okay, so let's go down and look at our whole zone, so you get a sense of where some of these kids are coming from. After school, we had a number of students that would like to hang out by the gym, and they would cut up, and they were having fun. They were just being kids. And the teachers were like, well, you need to run them off. They need to go home, and school's over. And I said, you know what? If you saw their home, you wouldn't want to go home. They're safe here. Okay, I can watch them here. This is the place they're safe. They don't want to go home. There's a reason for that. Engage with them. Another big piece of this. They need to understand that. There's the responsibility that comes with that. But our parents need to understand that you need to engage with your child in those fundamental years. You need to talk to the child. You need to, they need to be aware that it's just not, well, I have this baby, and when they're 4 years old, I just send them to school and they teach them all they need to know. So what can we do as a community to have those conversations?
So one of the other benefits of the community school model is the services that are available. The one that went up into his Evans is that it's got the medical facility on the edge of campus. Is the dental and the medical and the mental health and the other services that are available to students are also available to anybody that lives in the community. So it's not just restricted to the children. There's also support available for people who live near the school. As a result of that, one of the stories I heard at Evans, for example, was the parents started to take advantage of some of the health care and the dental. And as a result, they were going on the campus. A campus that their children were going to school to that they had never been to before. Because school was something fairly foreign to them because they had difficulty in school. And as a result of going on the campus, they started engaged with faculty of the school. And then they started to get engaged with an actual teacher of the students. And one of the other things that came out of Evans was they were explaining to me so many of the neighbors were getting engaged, because Evans is still in a fairly rough area, is they started to build a safety net of volunteers for the neighborhood that would be on street corners. So that when the kids went to school and went home, there was this feeling of safety for them to be able to walk to school and home. And it expanded and expanded, and it's a pretty substantial area. That's how we get people engaged. We give them another reason to go to school than just the education, particularly people in the neighborhood. Jarvis, you may want to expand upon that. I know you have a lot of other good stories.
Commissioner, Ziffer, you gave us some great examples. I think I want to make sure that as we talk about the theory of the model, that I bring in some practical, outlooks as well from the operational aspect. I know earlier we talked about parent and community mentioned how, you know, school is not the most welcoming place for everyone, especially if you're talking about a high-need community. A lot of times you're talking about an academic institution where everyone has a 4-year degree. So that can be intimidating in a high-need community for a parent to come out. So by having a parent center on campus, a place that's dedicated just for them to get their voice heard and also to receive services goes a long way. When you talk about a community school model, not only does it eliminate barriers, but it provides infrastructure. And I think that's the big thing. A lot of people want to help. A lot of people just don't know how. When you talk about having a parent center, I recall a student who was a high-achieving student all of a sudden just stopped coming to school. Well, the teacher's job is to teach, but the teacher knows that his student wasn't coming to school, so they got connected to our parent coordinator, said, can you assist me so they can go back to teaching? And that parent coordinator reached out. We came to find out that, unfortunately, the mother had been shot, and the student was staying at home to take care of their mother. So our parent coordinator was able to intervene, reach out to some resources, and get that mother a home nurse, a health aide, and that student was able to get back to school and get on track and graduate that year. Those are the things when you talk about the community school model, really catching students that fall through the cracks a lot of times because they're dealing with adult problems. When you talk about the infrastructure, when you talk about community involvement, everybody wants to help. Everybody comes to Evans and everybody has this program. But how do you facilitate that? Typically, at a typical school, they're going to go to the principal. The principal is the academic leader of our campus, and we want to keep it that way. So by having that community school model and our infrastructure that we have in place, not only do they have someone like me that they can have as a direct contact, but we also have a process. If you imagine a highway where all points, I'm from Orlando, all points lead to Disney World. Could you imagine that highway without any of those barriers? If it was just one road that took you there, or if it was everything just coming to Disney World without those boundaries and those barriers and that infrastructure in place. That's what a typical school is like for us in Orlando. But when you infuse that community school model, now there's an infrastructure in place. Now people can stay in their lanes. There's a process. There's a point person they know to go to. They also know what's expected of them, because you're not just going to come here and be engaged. You're going to be involved before you're engaged, because we got to make sure that you're committed to our students, because they're used to people coming in and out of their lives. And when you do it the right way, we have a community leadership council that we meet monthly that's a makeup of faith-based leaders, business leaders, alumni, public servants, and the support that we've been able to receive. We just had someone write a check for about $5,000 to provide our students with glasses. Our principal can't do that. But it's due to the work of that community leadership council that's coming to us every single month. How can we help? And then they branch off. And even from a school perspective, I can recall when you start talking about gender issues, and I'll shut up after this, Commissioner. We had our school is about 5 years old. Originally it was 50 years old. We tore it down, and the only thing that we left was the stadium. And our speakers was antiquated. And the principal reached out to the school district and was like, we need some new speakers. We gotta get it, to no avail. 2 years go by. Our community leadership council says, we want to take this on. Let's develop a letter. Let's start fundraising. This is a $25,000 project. Let's see what we can do. Well, we raised about $5,000, and then we drafted that letter. And that letter went out. In our community leadership council, we had some aggressive members. What ended up happening, one of those members went to one of our school board members and said, hey, we're raising money for Evans High School and our facilities. They need assistance, they need help. The speakers are antiquated. And she was embarrassed. She was embarrassed that an outsider was raising funds for one of her facilities. The very next day, we had facilities on site come and assess that speaker. And no, we didn't get that $25,000 speaker. We got a $65,000 speaker for our stadium. So I have now learned a trick to working with our school district superintendent and get my community leadership council to hit him from the back and we'll hit him from the front. So.
Superintendent, I want you to know that I did not know that was going to be said.
And I'm a former principal, so I've seen it from both sides. I see now the superintendent side with limited resources, but then, you know, as a former high school principal, and Ms. Wood what I'm talking about. She was a former principal as well. You beg, scratch, and claw for it. Get what you can get. Even at Leon, I had programs set up, and a lot of our principals do this all the time at every level. I had an in-house food pantry. Students every year would do a big Can the Principal fundraising drive for Second Harvest Food Bank. I'd pull about 10% out of that out to stock an in-house food pantry, and I'd go up there on Saturday mornings and discreetly kids and families could get food to take home for the next week. We had a hand-up fund that teachers could contribute to out of their own pockets. So if kids needed a pair of eyeglasses or something, we could try to get them help. Or if they had a tooth ache, we could try to get them to a dentist. I mean, doing, educators, teachers are amazing, and they give and give and give. But at some point, we have to, to get back and help them. I see that our sheriffs here, we're developing a relationship with the sheriff's department where if there are issues with domestic violence in the home in the evening, or a parent gets arrested, or there's a shooting or something that's happened traumatic at the home, that the schools get notified so we can grab that kid when they get to school the next morning to try to give them some help and counseling. But it's developing those partnerships and opening up lines of communications that we can all work together to help our children.
Jarvis, if you wouldn't mind just quickly, and then I've got a question for you, Kimball. Could you just, and I don't remember all the numbers, but I remember over a period of 4 or 5 years, I know the enrollment went way up, graduation rate, just some of the successes as a result of this new school concept.
Yeah, definitely. I know back when I was at Evans High School, our graduation rate was about 50%. Now this past school year, we're averaging 88%. So we're excited about that. Past 10 years, our school population was hovering around 1,800 students, and when we rebuilt our new campus, they capped it at about 2,300 capacity because they thought that, it'll probably be pretty ambitious for them to get, higher than that, and now we're pushing 2,700 students. When you talk about the school grade, historically we were a dropout factory, a double F school. In the past 5 or 6 years since we've been implementing our model, we've either been a B or a C school. So we're definitely proud of that. And with that, we are one of 2 high school community school models in the state. Majority of our models deal with the elementary school because when you talk about raising that ground floor, it's better to do it earlier. But all of our feeder schools are D or F schools. Our elementary schools, our middle schools are all D or F schools. But when we get to Evans High School, we still find a way at the last minute to raise it to a C or a B. So we're definitely proud of that work.
The students want to stay in school, and they want to learn. Expanding upon what the superintendent said, one of the stories I heard from one of the teachers was they just implemented an after-school tutoring program. Not very good results. What do we need to do to keep you here? They said, feed us. So they developed a big food pantry, and guess what happened? It was like 20 times the number of kids stayed. Because they go home, there's no food. And if they stay in school and on this campus, there's food. Kimball, if you wouldn't mind, because I know you've been engaged with the, you've been on the conference calls, there's a larger group that's out of the University of South Florida that kind of brings all these schools together. Can you talk a little bit about how those relationships work and also some of the things you've heard from some of these other schools?
Yes, there's a statewide network of community school directors, and the leadership is taken by the University of Central Florida Center for Community Schools. And we have a monthly conference call, and we talk about where you are in developmental stages, implementation stages, emergence stages, where you are, what your needs are. And you glean so much information with respect to, well, we're beginning, we need a after-school coordinator, or parent coordinator, or a school health coordinator, which are essential elements of a community partnership school. But we share ideas, we share best practices, we talk about how community schools can be of vital interest, not only for the community, but for the entire state and eventually the nation. And so we network on a consistent basis, we touch bases with each other to see where we are in our stage of a community partnership school. We talked about what the strengths are, what weaknesses are, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats. I just did the SWOT analysis for you. And so we go through this, but we glean the network of communicating with each other, talking with each other, and Jarvis does a good job in problems that Evans has experienced in their your sixth year of operation. And so the whole networking is to keep everybody sharpening the saw so we can continue this process and make community schools as a viable option to low-performing schools in the state of Florida.
I'm going to now, if it's okay, I'm going to ask Courtney a question, and then we're going to open it to some questions from the audience. But Courtney, Whole Child, I know, did some research into the area, particularly of South City, and you've got a better grasp of, for example, some of the issues that are facing the community. How do those needs match up with some of the services you've heard?
Sure, so we did some initial work just looking at some of the health disparities in the community, and then later on that led to a door-to-door kind of health assessment of the community where we asked people, residents about their health, about their concerns about the neighborhood, the concerns they might have for their children. And through that process, we identified, the number one concern for the residents of South City was crime, violent crime, safety in the neighborhood for their children. Way up there, they were concerned about access to quality child care centers for their children. And some chronic disease issues and access to affordable health care. For me, in the work that working in South City for these last years, there's no real hub in that neighborhood. We started some work in neighborhood meetings in churches, and we were alienating folks. They weren't churchy, it wasn't their church. Then we needed another kind of space for a community room, and so we went to the Housing Authority, and they graciously let us use their space for our neighborhood meetings. But we found that we've got the tenants in the neighborhood association, the Housing Authority there, but we're not getting the other folks. So for me, a community school is the hub. It becomes something the neighborhood can take pride in, to bring providers to the school and integrate them in the school model to serve the entire neighborhood and the students and parents at the school. Just creates so much sense of place and community. And I really believe that place-based model of care, it works. I think you have to bring these services to people who have been alienated and not feeling connected to the broader community. So by workforce development and parenting classes and food pantry and nutrition services and dental and vision, mental health, which we see is just a big issue in South City and other neighborhoods. So.
Thank you. The microphone. Justin, okay. Any questions? We were really that good. Right up here.
One of the things that prevent school from learning is bullying. So how do people this is getting to younger children. It's not only for the high school children, even for younger, for grade 1 and 2, is still bullying there.
The question was, how can you help deal with the bullying? Jarvis, maybe?
We take that very seriously. The bullying's been going on for decades. I remember late 70s when I had a horrible experience at Raw Middle School, and even my 9th grade year at Leon, because it was just bad. I was a kid with dark hair and dark skin and didn't fit in with any group. So it's something that I take very seriously. I have zero tolerance for bullying. But I think we've come a long way, and our kids are so much more accepting of each other now because we've had so much more conversation, blending to cultures and understanding. But we still have a long way to go. Some kids are just, there are some struggles, but it is something that's very important to us, and it does, when kids are scared to come to school or they don't want to come because they're being picked on or bullied, it's something we try to address immediately. We have a district office that centers around bullying. One of the big themes for our school system next year is going to be embracing the diversity we have in our schools. So kids get to learn that there's a number of students that come from different social or cultural backgrounds, and how can they embrace that? When I was at Leon, one of the things I appreciated the most was the diversity we had at the school. The northern boundary was Ox Bottom Road, south to Orange Avenue. We'll think of all the neighborhoods in Leon County that encompass. It's a lot. And the kids got it. The kids were great for the most part. So how can we spread that message as a school system where kids learn acceptance of different cultures and different values?
One point that hasn't been mentioned, so I'll just jump in. What we're talking about are services that are already available in the community. The school serves as, the word was used earlier, as the hub, where they can co-locate in one location. So the actual costs to do a community school are not that significant. There are costs, there's no doubt about it. But it sounds like all these services must cost something, but the fact is they're already there. And some of these organizations are looking for locations, and the school can provide that at no cost because they are, as Courtney said, in the center of where the issues are. So as this conversation moves forward, and I'm glad there's school board members here because I think, Joey, we had a conversation a couple of years ago, and Alva, you were on the school board then. It may be time to start to have this conversation. I know the superintendent says we've been talking long enough, so probably time to start talk about where we're going to go from here. And then go ahead and get this done. So thank you for your leadership on this. Are there other questions in the back?
I do have a question. We're actually sitting back here talking about getting providers into the, can you not hear me? Thank you. We were actually just sitting back here talking about what you just said, but I kind of want to see if we can expound upon it a little bit. As far as getting providers into schools, because they are services that are already offered in the communities, what does that look like? Does it look like offering dental providers or medical providers coming into schools a couple hours a day, housing them at the schools themselves?
So the Evans model, you can expand upon that. Because there are security concerns too.
Right.
Particularly, when you talk about that these services are available to people in the community, you can't, just have anybody come into your school campus. But there is a way that they deal with this. Jarvis?
Yeah, definitely. And kind of speaking to the commissioner's point, which I think was a great point, which is what really brings value to the community partnership school is co-locating, having those services on campus. It really makes those services more accessible. Prior to the community school model, we were referring students out for counseling. It wasn't happening. We had no way to track that. We would try to follow up, but who's going to do that?
Jarvis, if I can interrupt, do you have any idea how many students in your campus are getting mental health support?
Oh man, it's such a major part of our culture now.
It is.
Yeah, and we literally built it from the ground up. But we currently have about 4 full-time mental health counselors on campus, and they're always at capacity with a revolve, and they average 150 students at a time. So we've had to kind of pressure them that, hey, give the students who are performing better off your caseload so we can get some more higher need students on. But that is an extreme need for us. No problem. So when you talk about having those providers on the campus, well, a big model that we talk about with our community partnership school models, if you've seen a community school, you've really only seen one. If you've seen Evans High School, that's really one. And the reason why is you base it towards the needs of your community. Early on in the process, we do a huge needs assessment. We do it routinely to always assess the needs. So what Evans may need is not what Rickards may need. So you really work with your community, work with your school, your principal to find out what are the needs for your community for that school. Afterwards, then there's a process. With us, any provider that wants to come on and provide after-school programming or anything like that, there's a process that they go through. They must complete a provider application telling us about the programming, how long they expect to be here, any in-kind funding. And it's not that extensive, but because we are 4 organizations coming together, what I love about it is not one person can make the decision. So there's 4 different sets of eyes, 4 different sets of outlooks coming, and we decide as an operations team, does this fit our model? How do we proceed? Pretty much all of our services that are offered through our hub, which is the community partnership school, there's a consent form. The students have to consent, the parents have to consent to wanting that service because this is not a typical service. And then, like Commissioner Ziffer was stating, for those services that we offer to the community, there are certain infrastructures we put in place. Our Health and Wellness Center is located at the north end of our campus out by our football stadium. And the reason behind that is the Justice for Lumpster Act for safety and security purposes. So it actually has two entrances. It has an entrance for the community, and then it has a separate entrance for students and staff, and they never intertwine with each other for those purposes. So, you know, whatever your community needs, that's exactly what it'll look like.
I wanted to kind of touch on some of the topics that we've gone over over the course of the day, and thinking about the role of the community school in
providing that hub to the community in that whole community well-being, and thinking about some of those challenges that we have, like racial disparities in health care and employment and so forth, and thinking about segregation within our communities and our child care and everything else. What role can, and honestly, to be very frank, what role will our school district take in ensuring that as we shift into this community school mode, how are we going to lead in the dismantling of racism and white supremacy in our community?
Can I just address one thing?
Go ahead.
Because
You go first.
Yeah, there. So, just so we're clear, and Jarvis said this, the principal of the school is responsible for the academic performance of the school and the academic issues and the teaching of the students. The director of the community school model works for the four basic partners that Jarvis mentioned, which is your school system, your federally qualified healthcare provider, the university, and the not-for-profit. And those four basically, through the director, manage that part of the school. What you're talking about is something that's far broader. It's the community school as that individual school, while it may address some of those issues and help solve some of those problems, as Jarvis and others said, each school is going to be different because we don't go in, or the model doesn't go in and say, this school we're going to do this. There's got to be a whole community building, listening time period to find out what they want, because everything's different. We go to every corner of this community and everything's different. We do know where we have more difficulty. We do know where there are more hotspots in the city of Tallahassee we need to try to deal with. But to solve all those problems, I don't think the community school is going to be the solution to everything.
It's about one problem or barrier is we have the providers, but we don't have the space, it's room. And who's going to absorb the cost of construction and the things that are going to come along to provide space for the different providers? That seems to be the biggest barrier right now. We know we have people in the community that want to help, that want to get there, but where are we going to house them outside of the school so we can have the school setting and have the other pieces that people can come into? You mentioned you have 4 mental health counselors at one school. That's amazing. So we just formed a partnership with DISC Village where DISC is providing 1 mental health counselor for our secondary schools. For our elementary schools, we have one that shares 4 or 5 schools. So that is a huge, I would love to have something like that here. We just don't have the resources. So one of the biggest barriers that I see is space, and then it's capital dollars that can provide for construction and remodeling and renovations, because as a public school system, in a perfect world with unlimited funds, yeah, we'd love to have pie in the sky, but we don't have that. So the biggest barrier that I see, honestly, is space.
And that's something that's worked through as you start to develop this process with partners. We're about out of time, so I want to make one more comment if I could, because I know these 4 panelists, but I will say this. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. When the superintendent, probably within the first 30 days, we ran into each other, and he said to me, I want to learn more about community schools, and what it's out now. And I will tell you that this superintendent is very much interested in moving this forward. And the conversations I've had with school board members, I think it's time for us to further that conversation. So thank
It is, and I know school board members are very interested in this as well. I think it's not who gets the credit, it's what do we do? Let's put politics aside and do what's right, do what's best for Leon County and the children in Leon County. We want to create something though that's sustainable. Commissioners and superintendents coming up, hopefully later rather than sooner, but we want to build something that long after we're gone, it's still standing and serving our community well.
So, thank you, panelists. Mayor, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Y'all give it again for this panel.